Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Justin the Food Entrepreneur Show. I'm Justin Bizzarro. I'm your host. That's Bizzarro. For anyone else out there who's trying to find us, you can find Justin the Food Entrepreneurs on Instagram. We're still working on that. It's getting better. We're also on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. You can find me there as well, Threads. All of those are starting to be populated. And then Gorilla Brave, guys, that's the fellowship. That's the entrepreneur group. Multiple levels, free levels, all the way up to the elite levels where you guys want the coaching. You want the best of the best. That's what you guys asked for over the last, well, it was 4 years in where your voices got loud enough where I actually had to take time off because I thought I could just launch summits and events and networking and do that business because I was already in food and I already did catering and this was going to be easy. It's not as easy as you think. And the way you collect money from events is usually afterwards. So you're fronting the whole thing. Even though people might pay in advance, you actually can't collect till the event has been completed until the transaction has taken place. So those are all big lessons, guys, for me. And with that being said, I don't even know where I'm going, but follow Gorilla Brave. It's all there for you guys. There's different levels there. For me, my best level is when I'm committed and at an elite level with an elite group of individuals who are really intentional on growing over a lifetime. So that's the way we've done it. We've also got the fellowship that's on a level that we get at church. Like, hey, I just need other entrepreneurs around me. We have these groups. I just need someone to talk to or throw an idea back and forth to. There's all of access to that and that networking as well. That's why we set it up that way. So to sort of break the barriers that traditional networking groups sort of hold. They hold on to the information. They hold on to the relationships. But what we're doing is we're just letting it out for the world. We're telling stories. We're connecting the individuals. We're allowing them to collaborate on social media, collaborate in maybe products that they're producing together or food. So that's the whole thing there. So with that being said, I have a guest with us from New York. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Sibte, did I say it correctly?
Sib, Sibte.
Sibte, yep. From
Sib, no,
BK.
it's not, yeah, BK Jani, but it's SIB, as in like when you sip something, the same pronunciation,
Sip,
Sibte.
sip,
Yeah,
Sibte.
yeah,
Sibte. Nice.
correct.
Okay. Off everyone, for the audience, you see how much I'm struggling here. I will give a little humility there. I want to get it right, though. It's important to me. His parents gave him the name for a reason. So let's talk. Let's tell your story. Like, how and why food? How did you become an entrepreneur? The journey to Brooklyn. Let's talk about all of that.
So, journey as an entrepreneur, I think learning about yourself is very essential, and everybody has a different personality. And once we do not understand who we are, but we are stuck in different positions, and there's always a friction. And I always knew that I cannot work under someone. I cannot take orders. I can take instructions, but I cannot take an order. So there's a little difference. So I always struggle with authority, and I couldn't wait till I could start anything on my own. And I went to school for arts. I was a graphic designer for quite some time. Then I did my master's from Parsons in, I have a master's in fine arts from Parsons School of Design and Technology. And that was a great program. It's when you look at Photoshop, I will give you a very simple rundown. When you look at Photoshop or when you look at any other technological application on your computer and how it runs and how it makes you click a button and what happens and all the stuff. So the programming behind it, the interface, the color, the shape, everything, I did all of that stuff. So I was very fully equipped to come out of that program and just rein in the design and technology world out in New York. And slowly and gradually, always, I always liked animation, and I became a really good animator. And I was really busy as animating for different TV shows, MTV and NBC and all that stuff. But again, going back to the authority, I just couldn't survive longer. And one day I just pulled myself out of it. And I had a really successful career in the broadcast design world. And I had an idea starting from the the tsunami which hit Japan in 2000, what was that? 2010, 11, that we had to say, raise money. And I had I started a small little startup, failed miserably, moved on to do other things, failed again. And then I always loved food growing up in a city called Lahore in Pakistan. We grow up thinking, eating, breathing food all the time. Like you will come to my house for breakfast and you're going to ask me, once you finish your breakfast, we're like, what's for lunch? And then we're going to figure out what's for lunch. And then when you're finishing lunch, oh, let's call up our friends and let's go out for dinner.
Yeah.
So that's how my culture was and still is. And we actually have a very high standard of tastes and quality over there. And now I'm an immigrant, as you can probably figure that out from my accent. I could not find the similar. I could find something close, but the food was quite of a low standard, and the meat was not coming from high quality places, and everybody is cheapening out on the ingredients, and there was no way for me to get what I wanted. So I love burgers, and there was no halal burger in the city back in 2013, 14, 15. There was nothing around. And when
Yeah.
people said, oh, it's halal burger, it's the best halal burger. So one of my friends, he took me out to the best halal burger of my entire life. And I took a bite and I saw how the guy was making it. Nothing wrong with the flat griddle. Everything is great, but the patty was frozen. And I asked him, I said, what's in the patty? And he goes, it's halal, brother. And he flipped it a few times and gave it to us. It was not medium or medium well or well done. It was a brick and it was horrible. And I took a bite and I said, this is the most horrific experience. And I gave it to my friend and he ate it in like 2 seconds. He was, this is the best burger. And I said, one day I'll make a burger and you can try it.
And the,
I,
go
it's,
on.
no, no, go ahead.
I was
Say
just
what
gonna.
you,
I'm just it's an interesting thing. So you have a flavor profile in mind because you've created burgers for yourself at this point, right?
no, no, no. This is pre
Okay.
my concept. So
Okay. Go on.
I've been to all the burger joints in the city, which were like famous, like JG Mellon,
Yeah.
Manila Tavern,
Five napkin
and
burger,
all.
maybe. I don't know if they have a
Yeah,
halal burger or not, but
no, no. I will admit, I was not eating all halal.
okay. Go on.
I was doing whatever I wanted to,
Yeah.
and but I knew after like eating all these burgers, I knew what a $28 burger should taste like. I knew what $12 burger should taste like. I know how the meat should be cooked. And growing up in a culture where everything has to be well done because we think it's blood, but now my research and my Google tells you no, it's not blood. It's actually medium rare is pretty cool, and you can have medium rare. You won't die. And I realized how I went wrong ordering burgers well done. And then slowly and gradually, I figured out medium, medium rare, even rare. I've tried everything. So I knew what the burger should be. And my friend dragging me to this spot in Astoria and telling me that this is the best halal burger of your life. And I didn't want to spit it out. It was so bad. And I gave it back to him and he ate it in 5 seconds and thought he said, this is delicious. I'm like, bro, this is garbage. He
Gosh,
goes,
I know.
you don't understand. I said, you don't understand what the burger should be. I said, one day I will make a burger and I will show you. And then my quest began, and I was at a point like I wanted to start something else. I was done with design. I don't want to take pictures of people's products and jewelry and dresses and all this. I was done. And as you were sharing your story before, like people will not pay you. And the same thing with me. They will promise me thousands of promises, but they will never follow up. They will never pay you. And you have to like hound them. So I gave up. I'm like, I'm done. I'm not gonna design anything, any no branding, no nothing. I'm gonna do something entirely different. So I had an idea to go and figure out how to make Napolitana pizza. I enrolled myself into that class in Naples, and I want to go there. But my one of my
There you
niece,
go.
she's not with us anymore. She died of cancer 2019. So that would be 6 years from now. 6 years ago, she died 6 years ago out of cancer. She was a chef in the city. And she told me, like, why are you thinking about pizza? You're going to be bored in 2 seconds. You're going to learn it. You're going to make it. You're going to be bored. Why don't you stick to your burger idea? I said, yeah, that makes sense. I'm just going to go back to the burger idea. And I was looking around for places and I found one close to my house in Brooklyn. And this is the one of the coolest stories of a handshake, what a handshake means. And I went in, spoke to the owner. It was a dump. The business was shut down a few months ago. He was just paying rent and he wanted to sell the lease. And it was used to be a pizza store. He sold the pizza oven, he sold the mixer, he sold everything just to make the rent. And his name was Jose. And I said, Jose, what do you want to do with it? He goes, nothing. You are doing it. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, here are the keys. And we decided on the money part. And I told him, I said, I don't have the money. He goes, you will. You'll pay me when you can. And he shook hands with me. There was not a single piece of contract written. This guy, a construction guy, was holding on to the store for his in-laws so they could be out of the house and away from him and do something on their own. So he gives me these keys to the store and he tells me, like, you pay me when you can. So all right, cool. And I come from a culture in which your word is everything, and the it's the written contracts are secondary. I am doing this, so I take over the keys and I'm trying to figure out, like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this dump? And I said, you are construction, do you have people to come clean it up? He goes, yeah, what do you want? I said, remove everything. I don't need anything in there. He said, all right. So next morning, everything was cleaned up. And I'm sitting here. I said, I have a store and I've never worked in a restaurant before. I've never been behind the counter. I've never done anything.
This is
And
awesome.
yet I'm here figuring out, okay, there's a hood. And what is this? What
That's
is
the most
that?
important thing when you're to cook anything, because if you don't have to put a hood in your building, you just saved yourself, well, in New York City, possibly like $250,000.
Exactly. So I'm like, okay, so here's the hood, here's the fryer, here's everything. I said, Jose, everything works? He goes, yeah, everything works. I said, okay, cool. I have no clue what to do next. It's June. And I'm like, all right, figured it out. And then I was just going around different places, trying to see what other people do and what's done. And then I figured out, okay, I know this brand. This guy makes these grills, and I'm just going to call him up and ask him for a grill. And that's what I did. And I asked him for a grill. He goes, how big do you want it? I said, it's a 4 foot grill. How do you want it? I said, I don't know. He goes, what do you want to do? And I said, burgers. Do you want a flat top? I said, what's a flat top? I don't know. I don't know what a flat top is. And then he's showing me in his showroom. This is a flat top. This is a radiant. This is a flame broiler. I said, I have no clue. Just give me something that you think is good. So I'm taking advice from a guy who builds kitchen equipment, custom kitchen equipment.
Not
I
it,
have no idea. Like, this is how
he's your
ignorant I
chef
was.
designing your recipes.
He's
You
my,
went to the
yeah,
guy designing
yeah,
the guy building the
yeah,
equipment. It's not a bad idea
exactly.
though. I don't
Yeah.
disagree with it. But go on.
So, so he tells me, what should I get? And I said, all right, cool. Give it to me. He gives it to me and I bring it over and it gets installed. So I went to this friend of the same guy who gave me that burger. I went with him to a sushi place. And this is already like end of July. I'm paying rent. I have no idea what I'm going to do. Sit in a sushi bar, having sushi with this friend of mine, and I'm look over on the wall, and there are a bunch of framed letters from New York City. One says FDNY, the other one says New York City, another one says something else. And I'm like, and I said, don't you think I need one of those or all of them? He goes, "Oh, I don't know." Said, all right. So I'm looking over them like, what are these?
Gosh,
And
that's
those are
like
like,
the biggest red tape in New York City possible, the bureaucratic.
exactly,
And you
exactly.
say you don't want to work for someone.
exactly. So
Yeah.
so I imagine like I'm questioning myself, what are these and what do I need to do with them? Like, do I need them? So I come back and I'm standing in my store and I know that I'm going to have some takeouts. So I need a container. And on my door, there is a sticker. It says Crown Container Company. And I said, oh, that's the container company. I need to call them up for containers. So just thinking like, okay, I have to do something. So I call up this container company. At least I should order some containers. Why? I have no idea. So I call this guy up and he picks up the phone and he says, I need a container. He goes, how big do you want? I said, I don't know, for a burger. And he goes, huh? What do you mean? I said, I need a container for a burger. And he goes, are you looking for a what? I said, I need a container. I need a container. He goes, yes, I understand. And now he's getting upset with me. And I said, I need a container, brother. What else do you want me to tell you? I need a container for a burger and fries. He goes, do you want a 20-yard or a 50-yard? I'm like, what do you mean 50-yard? He goes, where are you calling? Why are you calling me? And I said, I found your number. No, he said, where do you find my number? And I said, right here. I'm standing right here. It's on the door. It says a container company. Don't you give me containers? He started laughing. He goes, bro, we pick up your garbage. We are not a container supplier. What are you doing over there? And I said, well, I'm going to do this. He goes, when you're ready, call me up. I said, all right, cool. I hung up and I'm walking back and forth and I have this idea that I want to make some furniture. Do I know how to make furniture? No. What kind of tables do I want to make? Something. So I go to Home Depot, pick up a bunch of lumber. I had a friend and I asked him, I said, what do you want? What do you think I need? He goes, you need a drill, you need an impact driver, you need a table saw, you need this. I said, all right, cool. I'll get those. And I get everything. And I said, what kind of screws do I need? He tells me, oh, you need these screws. All right, cool. I come and I start cutting things up and putting a model together. And there's a lot of sawdust. There's everything else. And I'm like just randomly making things. Oh, this is what I'm going to do. So, and now imagine, I don't know with the containers, what I need to do with the containers. I don't know what I'm going to do with the menu. I have no idea. So this is imagine like everything is in a, there's no business plan. There's no menu. There's no idea. I don't know anything. Get to know that I need to go and I need to register the company. Cool. No problem. I'll do that. And I did it. And then I got to know that I need to get insurance and I need a permit. Permit for what? The restaurant. Okay, how do you get it? Called up 311, figured that out. And then I took my paperwork. According to them, you need to bring your paperwork in. I said, sure. I took my paperwork, got over there, and they said, oh, where's the pink paper? Which pink paper? And she's behind this thick acrylic. I cannot understand what she's asking. She tells me, you need the pink paper. Where's the pink paper? I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. What is the pink paper? She tells me, where's your sales tax? I said, I didn't buy anything. Like, what are you talking about? She goes, you need sales tax. I said, sales tax from whom? And she just looks at me. She goes, what are you doing? And I said, I'm starting a business. I need a restaurant. I'm starting a restaurant. Okay. Did you apply for sales tax? I said, no. Which floor do I need to go? She goes, no, you need to apply to sales tax to the state. And now I'm not thinking straight. Like, I'm here at DCA. You are the thing. He goes, no, we are the city. You need to call up the state.
Yeah,
I'm like,
I know
state.
exactly.
Okay.
And by the way, for
Okay.
the audience, 311 in the city of New York is more important than 911 to a
Oh,
person
yeah.
trying to do business or make their way in here. You have to
Yeah.
call 311 more times. You can't even find it on the internet. 311 is more important. Anyway,
Yeah.
go on.
311. Yeah. 311 will help you with everything from potholes to
Yeah.
fire hydrant issues to anything, like alternate site parking. 311 is like is the best thing ever.
Yeah.
So I told her, I said, okay, so I need to call up the state. Okay, so come back, fill up all the information. By the way, I have no idea what I'm filling up. I said, okay, I'm gonna fill it up. If there's a problem, they'll call me back. And then I said, how long will it take? She goes, I don't know, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. I told her, I said, I'm paying rent on a closed store. Can you do something? She goes, no. And she just said, "Who's next?" She said, "Kicks me out." I said, "All right." And I and I went, came back, and I applied for my sales tax. And I applied for my sales tax, and they said it's going to take 6 to 8 weeks. I'm like, all right, 6 to 8 weeks, bro. Awesome. Thank you so much. And I'm sitting here waiting. Got 2 more months to sit down, do nothing. And my sales tax show up. Brilliant. So now in the meantime, I'm figuring out auctions. You can go buy stuff from the auctions. You don't have to buy everything brand new. Then I also found out auctions are full of scams. When the auctioneer tells you this 6 foot fridge works perfectly, and for $275, this is the perfect fridge for you. And that fridge didn't work. That fridge was never working for the last 10 years. It was in the storage. Everything was a scam. I bought some broken stuff and bought, anyways, no problem. It's part of the deal. I bring everything back, make my lineup. I don't know how to make a lineup. Make my lineup. Lo and behold, sales tax show up. Apply for my permit, and they said, "Have you started a business?" No. Okay, we got to send an inspector to inspect your place. All right. Inspector shows up, and then they inspect everything. And it was a very nice woman, very polite. I was told by some angel, I call these people angel, like who would just come by, give you some advice, and you just hold on to it because you never know when you need it. And this person told me, like, when your first inspection happens, you cannot have anything edible, not even water in your restaurant. I said, water? Okay. So I cleaned up everything. There was nothing here. The furniture was made. I made picnic tables. Everything was ready. Everything was clean. So this woman comes in, walks around for 5 minutes, checks out everything, and she goes, "Congratulations, you have a license from the city of New York. You can operate a restaurant." I said, "Thank you." And then she looks at me, she goes, "What's on the menu?" And I said, "I have no idea." She goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "I have no idea what I'm cooking. I don't even know how to do something like this." She goes, "Okay, you'll figure it out." I said, "Yep." And that was September 9th, 2015. And another I have no idea where to get the meat. I knew Creekstone, right? And I heard about this brand, this farm, Creekstone Farm. Google the number, call up Creekstone Farm, and I said, "I would like to order some burgers." She goes, "All right, how many do you want?" I said, "I don't know, maybe like 20 pounds, 30 pounds." She goes, "How much?" I said, 20 or 30 pounds. She goes, "Darling, we only do minimum of 5,000." I said, "Five? No, I just need 30 pounds." She goes, "Where are you calling?" I said, "Keystone Farms." She goes, "Yeah, but where are you calling from?" I said, "I'm calling from New York. I'm right here and I need to start burgers." So she started again, another person laughing at me and laughing with me about my situation. She goes, "You need to call up. We're gonna you need to call up at Lafreda." I said, "Who's that?" "Oh, they are the butchers over there. They can process everything." And I said, "So they can give me the burgers?" "Yeah, that's what they do." I said, "All right." Never heard about Pat Lafreda. Call them up. This Claire, the girl over there who was super nice. I still miss her to this day. Super nice, super helpful. Walked me through the process. Send the burgers over. Told me what to do next. What are the next steps? How to fix the mix and this and that. And finally, 3 weeks later, I had my mix and I was grilling the burgers. I figured out how it should taste like, how it should look like, and that's how my burger spot began, out of a lot of hitting my head against the wall and calling up the guy for a container and calling up for 5,000 pounds of burgers. Yeah, I finally had a burger on the grill, and that was my first time grilling, was October 3rd, 2015.
Talk, talk to me about spices. Talk to me about building a burger. Talk to me about, you have this idea in your head. Now you've got to deliver it. You build a menu, which I want to talk about the menu in detail, how you come up with some of the items. And as we discussed in the pre-recording, how you came across the fried chicken sandwich, but also, I'm going to pronounce it wrong, but the Lahore sandwich is something that came across, and something you and I didn't discuss in pre-recording, or the audience doesn't know, is that when I was married, my ex was from Bangladesh, so I spent a lot of time, and learning and implementing halal food and halal practices into my indoor hospitals and indoor concepts for that audience. And it took a while. And it is a food code. Everyone thinks it's religious. It's more important that I think we understand it's a true food safety and food quality thing that's going on there also, not just the blessing of the meat. Same in
Yeah.
kosher. It's
Yeah.
a food
Exactly.
safety thing.
Yeah.
And it's important to understand that why the meat's better in the way that it's done. It's worth looking into if you're into butchering or you have a burger shop or you're in proteins of any sort. Definitely look into the differences there. It's worth looking at. It's worth educating yourself. Let's
Yeah.
talk about how do you even build a burger. Let's talk about choosing a sesame bun. Let's choosing non-sesame bun. How do you sort of start building these burgers and offering a menu because you have no experience necessarily. So now not only do you have to build the recipes, you have to source it, you have to sell it, you have to get on, gosh, I guess it's Yelp at that time. I don't think DoorDash was as popular. I think it was Grubhub was growing in New York City at that time, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
But let's talk about it a little bit. Let's talk about launching a menu, launching a restaurant, because building it is one thing and getting through all the hoops is one thing. It's like the ticket to the entry to the game, but now you've got to play the game. Yeah.
Yeah. So whatever on the menu, I started with 4 items, and those items were only items that I was missing from mainstream restaurants in the city. And thanks to Claire, she would just talk to me about like, do you want to try this? Do you want to do this? So I had a chicken tikka, big pieces of chicken. When you pick up a whole chicken, cut it up in quarters, marinate it, grill it. That was one. The burger was second. A burger was first. Lamb chops were second. The chicken tikka was third, and there was a steak roll. I had hanger steak. Back then, hanger was not that popular, so it was affordable. So, and then there was, I don't know how to make bread. So I was just getting bread from the store. I knew how to make chutneys and sauces. And like, again, no professional training or not even following the recipe to the correct T. I would just wing things around and figure out what made sense. And when it comes to the burger, I was just trying out, like, I don't want to eat cheese. Nothing to do with religion. I just didn't want to eat cheese at that point. And I finally, when I landed on the blend after 2.5, 3 weeks of grilling burgers and figuring out, and there's this green mint chutney that we make at home in Pakistan, and that goes with usually everything.
Like a
And
samosa dip, like that type of
yeah,
that
but
type of
yeah, yeah, that's a similar family, but this chutney is like very, very dense and very thick.
cool.
And usually people add yogurt in it to make it more saucy, but this was like a really pasty thing. And the burger, the patty was amazing. Like you could just sit there and just nibble on it. And I just slapped on the chutney on it just because that's the only thing which I think goes with it. Without, I don't. People ask me, how do you come up with it? I have no idea. I don't come up with things. I just do things, and they just are like, okay, my experience will tell me go left or go right, and that's what I kept on doing. And finally, I had this, and there was a piece of tomato. I'm like, okay, we need to have a tomato because of the burger, and it just all worked out. And then I started to make. Okay, so the biggest issue that I had was taking money. I just could not take money from people. So from 3rd October 2015 to 26th October 2015, I was not charging anyone. People would ask me, what kind of place is this? What are you doing? And I would tell them, and they were like, okay, what's on the menu? I'm like, here's the menu. I wrote it on the wall. Okay, how much do we owe you? I'm like, it says what's on the menu. It doesn't say the price because no, I can't. I was massively awkward taking money from anybody. Then my friends are like, no, you can't do this. You cannot continue to feed people when they are willing to pay. And I said, well, I'm sharing. I don't feel like selling. And this is what I love. Like, I want to share this amazing things that I grew up with, like the flavor profile, the quality, and everything. And then we're like, nope, you got to charge. And then I started charging. And my first time I charged someone was the most awkward thing ever in my entire life. I had to ask for money and then I had to give them the change back. I could not see the person in their eyes. I could not bring my face up. And then slowly and gradually I got out of my shell. And then for the first 2 years, I did not charge sales tax because I knew adding another 8.5, 9% might throw people off out of affordability. But I really wanted people to try what I'm doing. And I don't want people to be like, oh, that's too expensive. I cannot even afford to go in. No, because I've been through that time when I could not afford to go into restaurants. And I know how it feels when you walk out, when you're walking on the street and there's a store that you feel like I can't even afford to go in. So all I could do was not add tax. For 2 years, I did that. And my accountant was like, where's the sales tax? I'm like, I'm not charging them. And he says, nobody cares. You need to charge them tomorrow. You're paying out of pocket. I said, yes. I don't, I was a little bit wacky about that part. But then he made me charge sales tax and nobody bothered. Nobody came and gave me a hug like, oh my God, thank you so much for not charging me sales tax. No, nobody cared. And and nobody realized.
Oh my gosh.
No, not even a
I think I
single
just
soul
broke a rib.
realized.
I laughed so hard. Yeah, it's true. I know what
Yeah.
you're going through, though. I've been that journey. Go on.
Yeah. So, and then I started charging sales tax. And then he asked me, because he does a lot of other restaurants, he said, what's your food cost? And I said, what is that? No idea. And this is my second, like, I spent a lot of time ordering stuff. He goes, are you keeping a track of the food? I said, no. Are you to keep a track of your expenses? I said, everything is on a credit card. He goes, are you categorizing? I said, no, because I just want to go. I just want to like make things happen. And then it was okay. It was happening. And then lo and behold, I get this phone call from, no, okay. So another thing was happening was random people were showing up. Clearly, they're not locals. Clearly, you could see like they're not from Bushwick. They're not from Brooklyn. Random people show up. They will they will order stuff, eat, go home, and that's it. So one day, I get this group of people, and their groups are coming like they're well dressed. They don't belong to Bushwick. You know, there's the expensive shoes and expensive pants going on. Like something is
In
wrong.
California,
I
they
could.
call them suits when that happens. The suit showed up.
So yeah, so the suit showed up a few times, and then I get this call from this guy, David. He goes, "Hi, my name is David, and I'm calling from the Times." And you understand, like when you start a business, people are calling you up to sell you something, a POS, a poster, a garbage, and this and that.
A
And he goes, "I'm from the
podcast.
Times."
A podcast
Yeah.
here and there.
And he goes, my name is David. I'm calling from the Times. And I said, okay, what's Times? He goes, New York Times. And I said, and I'm thinking like he's going to sell me the subscription. And I said, yes. He goes, we would like to talk to you about it. I said, about what? About your restaurant. And I said, you're calling from New York Times? He goes, yeah. I said, I don't trust you. He goes, what do you mean? I said, I don't trust you, David. You could be David from somewhere else. And you're telling me you're New York Times. Why don't you give me your phone number and I'll call you back? He goes, all right. He gives me his phone number back. He gives me his phone number and I call him back and he picks up and he goes, David. I'm like, New York Times? He goes, yes. He started laughing. I said, yes, David, how can I help you? And I'm like, why is he calling me up? He goes, I want to talk to you about your restaurant. I want to set up an interview. I'm like, okay, sure. And I'm thinking like there has to be a caveat. There has to be an upsell or something, a subscription or something. He goes, no, I'm just going to set you up. And what time can you be on the phone? I said, okay, I'll be on the phone at whatever, 8 o'clock. And then I get this call. I got this person to come and take pictures. And if this was March of 2016, and I'm thinking like this is a bizarre thing. New York Times calls me up, right? April 3rd, it goes online. April 7th, it gets printed. And I thought I just hit a gold mine. This is it. Like I'm gonna have people lined up out the door and I'll be grilling 1,000 burgers and nothing happened. Next week, nothing happened. Week after that, nothing happened. Again, nothing. I'm like, all right. So this woman was selling me a POS from Toast. She comes in, she goes, "Oh, I saw you. You're in the Times." I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Congratulations." I said, "Thank you, but what happens?" She goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Where? It's in the Times, right?" She goes, "Yeah." I said, "Where's the line?" She goes, "I don't know." I said, "Exactly. It's bizarre. I'm in the Times, but there's no line." July, that's we hit. That's when we hit it up, and we were 2 hours to a table. It was a small place, 18-seater, and 2 hours to each item. And I was full speed ahead, grilling, cooking, making things, hiring more staff. And 2016, it went crazy. People with more suits came in from Upper West Side, Upper East Side, Soho, NoHo. All these people showed up in black Ubers and all the stuff. And I told them to their face, I said, "Thank you for coming. You're not going to come again for sure because this is Bushwick." And that happened. And then that was 2016. And now this is 2025, and I have three locations. And I have the same burger, same chutney, a little bit better bun, slightly expanded menu. So I have total of 9 items on the menu. And I'm doing exactly the same thing, and I'm happier. I'm happier as compared to all my previous 25-ish, 20-ish years of design and animation.
Yeah, one of the things I'm going to anchor here, and the audience is going to be like, in any professional training show, it's going to be, how did this happen? What happened? Ingenuity. How did he do this? Here's a little secret, I think, for everyone in the scenario of life and being an
Mhm.
entrepreneur. The food, the star of your show, whatever it is, whatever it's going to be, generally happens out of squeezing out of the nature of your first location or your first food truck or your first brick and mortar. However, there's somewhere along the journey where the star comes along. Okay.
Yeah.
You could
Hmm.
argue McDonald's, maybe it wasn't, the hamburger was a star, but then when the chicken McNugget came along and parents could have the Happy Meal and it was portable and it was clean and it didn't make a mess in the car.
Hmm.
Wow. So these
Yeah.
are talking about the stars of the show. Certain things come along, they change the game. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in this case, what we're talking about here with BK Jani is because of the nature by the way you were led on your path, the star of the show became developed not at the beginning. A lot of people design a menu and then try to develop a concept around it instead of looking at the location that they're given at the beginning, the truck they're giving at the beginning. Maybe they have an idea of the food itself, but then designing a menu around the space that you go into versus the other way around. I'm going to tell you guys it's a lot easier that way. Find the equipment that works. Make sure you have a variety of equipment that covers what you're trying to do in general, and then build the menu. And
Hmm.
everyone's going to think I'm
Exactly.
crazy because they're like, "Oh no, my aunt's barbecue sauce is really good. I want to do this." I get it, but your aunt's barbecue sauce may not be good as your uncle's barbecue sauce when in a commercial environment with whoever. So you just need to look at how is it going to operate? How is it going to affect the employees? What about the other items on a menu? It's just, you save a lot of time if you do that at the beginning, guys. I'm just going to say it. When we get stuck in that initial menu, it leads to a lot of, I don't know, delay in our growth, delay in
Yeah.
our business
Yeah.
being profitable. So,
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people want a wish list, and my luck is that I am stupid enough to just work with whatever I have. That was part of the creative process growing up in a design school. Like you only have a knife. Draw with a knife. How could you draw with a knife? But I figured it out. You only have pastel on different colors that you don't even like. Use it. Make something. Show your like. Just go. Don't just sit there and be like, I want XYZ first. No, you never know. And that's what I did, and I still do it the same way. Like if I don't have anything else, I didn't even sell fries for 2.5 years because I didn't know how to run a fryer. I was scared. And then one guy came in for looking for a job, and he asked me if he could get a job. I like, what's your experience? He told me I was on the fry station. I said, wait, you know how to use a fryer? He goes, yeah. Can you see my fryer works? And he goes, okay. He turned the fryer on. It worked. I gave him the job. And then from there, I started selling fries.
it's amazing. And again, I think sometimes we just need to let the course be the action, guys, and that's important. Let's talk about the other items, developing the fried chicken
Yeah,
sandwiches. You talked about the lamb chops. You talked about everything on there. You developed these items.
yeah,
Let's talk about
yeah.
those a little bit because they're in addition to the burger. What made you go outside of the burger originally and additionally?
So lamb chops, it's a staple on the grill on over charcoal or real coal in Pakistan. You get lamb chops really, but they don't have this style. They have a different. They don't make lamb chops like this. They have a different cut, but they are huge. And usually they pound the meat and make it really thin. Add a lot of masala, put it on the grill quickly, and you have lamb chops, which is great. So I had that idea, but the way American restaurants would do lamb would be a full rack on the grill, and then once they are done, they will cut it up, and it has this nice pink interior and a nice char outside. And when I made that, it took me 45 minutes to get to up to 10. But I'm thinking like, this is bizarre. I don't want to cook something for that long. And so I just cut it up. I'm like, I want a smaller one. And obviously when I cut it up, knowing never butchered anything in my entire life, like professionally or knowing how to butcher, out comes this beautiful 7, 8 pieces of lamb. And I had my mix. I made my mix on the go and put it on the grill and it just worked out. And that became the staple. And then couple of, I would say like 1 year later, I was asked by a lot of customers that why don't you make a fried chicken sandwich? And I don't want to tell them that I don't know how to use a fryer. So I was like, yeah, one day, one day, one day. Now I have the fryer running, and this guy's working with me, and he showed me how to use the fryer and how to turn it on and everything else. So okay, we're gonna make. I don't know how to make a crust of a fried chicken. Then we started playing with everything else. Somebody told me about panko, use panko, Japanese panko, seasoned panko, Italian. Like no idea.
Yeah, I've
I'm just
been
trying
there.
things.
I've done
Yeah,
the fried chicken ventures. I'm still doing it. My obsession with the fried chicken thing is just,
yeah,
it's crazy. It's crazy.
yeah.
But yeah, go on.
So make this. I want to get this crunch, and I'm obsessed with banchan situation out in the Korean. And when you ask somebody to give you like hint or understanding how the crunch works, nobody's going to tell you anything. So I'm figuring out like what do we do and how do we do this? And then we have this dish. It's a snack called pakoras. And pakoras are made out of gram flour. So you have these garbanzo lentils, chana. They are called chane ki dal. Chane ki dal. That's the dried, not the dried. What would you call them? That's the lentils. You have the lentil ground up, and then you add water and spices and everything else, and then you fry it, and it comes out crispy. But then I figured out that's the flavor profile comes from my culture with cumin, coriander, salt, black pepper, red pepper, a little bit garlic, a little bit onion, and that's a mix. Then I landed on panko and I started mixing that with panko and a little bit flour. And then I was starting to get the crust. I already had the grilled chicken. I put the grilled chicken in the panko and started making that and adding more flour, less flour, and then came out to something very similar to what I'm doing now. And then I realized that panko is a cheat and I didn't want to do panko. And slowly and gradually, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years later, I figured out what is the ratio and what is a starch. Nobody told me a starch. Nobody told me like potato starch, try potato starch. Nobody. See,
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like nobody tells you anything. They even somebody gives them the recipe, they will still not tell you. I'm opposite. If somebody wants to know how do you make your fried chicken, I will hold their hand, drag them to the kitchen, show them exactly the proportion. Okay, let's do 1:1 on flour and starch. Let's see what the fryer does to that. Let's do 2 flour, 1 starch. And then I wrangled onto the recipe that is crunchy to look at, crunchy to eat, but not crunchy enough to break your. like hurt your inside of your mouth, because there are some places that when you eat, like it's really, really crunchy and it's inedible. So that's how I figured out the starch flour ratio. And thanks to, what's his name again? The guy, I forgot his name. He had this really big book about food, and he's from California. And I saw one of his recipes. He has this wet batter.
You're not talking about geez, now I'm going blank. But anyway, go on.
Something Lopez, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Alt
yeah.
Lopez, what is his
Yeah.
name?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. But anyway, go on.
Yeah. So I found the best way to make the fried chicken is to have a little wet batter, then the dry, and straight into the fryer. And it works perfectly. And that's how I landed on the chicken. And I can eat my chicken because I brine it for 48 hours. Then I marinate it for a day. Then I put the crummy thing on it. Then I fry it. So if you get my fried chicken, you can eat the crust by itself. It's flavorful. It's actually good. And then if you want to break down and go deeper inside on just the chicken, the chicken, it's going to have itself has flavor and is seasoned properly. A lot of places that I went to, they said, "Oh, it's a breast fried chicken. Try it." And when you take off all the crust, there's nothing inside. It's just a bland piece of meat. It's like garbage, and they just brush things outside. No, that's stupid. I can brush anything outside. I want to eat the chicken.
Yeah, I love it. I agree with you. I'm going to anchor this just because I specifically asked for the chicken or asked about it. And I am focused on it. One of the things that the reason that this all came across, and I talked about the two things, the chicken sandwich, but it's because what I've said to everyone is anyone that's in chicken or whatever and talks about Chick-fil-A, you cannot take on a Chick-fil-A without the chicken sandwich being your lead. It led for them. It won for them. You have to have the best chicken sandwich to take on Chick-fil-A. So one of the things in my inner circles that anyone who knows me, I'm always like, I'm waiting for to find the chicken sandwich to take down Chick-fil-A. Now, are there tons and tons and tons of entrepreneurs out there with chicken sandwiches that are better than Chick-fil-A? Yes. But there has to be a story. It has to be a star, and it has to be able to take it on. There has to be an
Yeah,
entrepreneur that understands the marination, the process, that understands combining it together in a different way that's atypical. Okay.
yeah,
So reason Chick-fil-A became Chick-fil-A is because before that, no one really put fried chicken on a sandwich in that fashion. So
yeah.
that's part of the reason, or on a biscuit for breakfast. It just wasn't something that was done outside the South. So
Hmm.
that's how this came across to me. Everyone's always like, you created or whatever. It's you could figure it out. But also one of the things that I'm just going to say in your case, there is it's taken time. Obviously you had to build it. It takes time to become an entrepreneur. It takes time to build a star, even though maybe the burger's the same. You've built this chicken sandwich that now everyone's talking about, and it's at a good price point comparatively, right?
Yes, yes.
So let's
It
talk about
is.
that
It
a little
is.
bit.
Okay, so what I did was I was culturally, when you have when you have guests over at your house, you should make enough that after they take, once everybody's done, there should still be food on the table. You should always have, you should always cook more. So having that DNA, I always made big items. I always had a 6.5 ounce chicken when I started chicken sandwich. And then I was told by one of my chef friends, that's too big. And I said, what do you mean it's too big? You need to have, she goes, no, you need to have something that is a one portion. You cannot be giving 8 ounces or 7 ounces or 6 ounces, too much. Add the breading. Now it's like huge. You cannot finish it. And I said, that's great. You should have the value on the plate. She goes, no, dummy. You need to finish your food. You should not be leaving food on the table, because no, it's not fun. And I said, all right, got it. So I brought back, I I scaled it down to 4 ounces. Then I also realized, thanks to the same chef friend who said, do your food costing, figure it out where it should be, and it should be within the price point of what else is happening around you. So don't be ignorant. Like you cannot just be like, oh, I'm gonna have a $26 fried chicken sandwich. Yes, you can, but it's a novelty. It has to be it has to be something worthwhile.
It better taste like gold and come out the other end like silver. So,
Yeah. So and then I figured out everything what goes in, even though it is I sell it between $12 and $14, $14 on other location because that's a different business model. I sell it at $12 over here on Grand Street, and I should be selling it close to 14, 15 over here. But no, we have to balance things out. Sometimes you got to make less money on an item to make it more valid. Then always keep the formulation of your pricing according to your food cost. I don't agree with that. And everything has to be, and you have to create the median of your profitability and your expenses and figure out where you can make more money, where you can make less money, and create a balance across the menu. And that's how I came up with the recipe and the flavor profile and the sizing and the presentation.
I'll emphasize this for everyone. At the first thing as we were building our businesses, we were in contract food. So we're talking voluminous amounts of food, guys, across multiple diets, across multiple proteins that it's hard for restaurants and anyone to understand because we're producing thousands of different meals based on different diets, based on different combinations. And in Kaiser Permanente's case, we were traying it all. So it was going on the trays, onto the trucks, to the hospitals, and rethermed on the trays to the patients. And so that one wasn't bulk. In some cases, it was bulk. Some cases, it was just the plates, and they would do the cold items in the hospitals. But it depended. But what my point is, there's a lot of moving pieces to what you were doing. You've taken on multiple proteins. You've taken on lamb, beef, chicken, right? I believe the lamb is grass fed, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
The chicken's organic, and the beef is halal. Is that correct?
Everything is halal.
Yep.
Everything is halal. There's nothing non-halal item ever comes to my restaurant. Then my beef is 90%. It comes from Pat Lafayette, which brings it from Creekstone Farms, halal. The lamb comes from New Zealand. It's halal. The chicken comes from I'm forgetting the name of the farm. They do organic chicken, certified GAP 6 or GAP 3, whatever the thing is. They do it that way, and then we get that one. And then I tackle these proteins, and then I have steaks. And then I figured out how to grill a steak the real way, as in like the sear outside completely seared, and the gray banding should be minimal or should not exist.
Yeah. And then, so I'm going to anchor this now to what I was saying before. So when you're doing, one of the very first things we did as starting business, because the complications is the cost analysis of the menu, of building a menu. We had to come in at a certain price point for the hospitals. You need to set a certain price point in your business and create quality within that. That is another important step we kind of just talked about. But pennies matter in the food business. It doesn't mean you save pennies by giving up quality. What it means is you just know what it is that you have. You know your price points. You know your ingredients. You know if you need a lower cost item, where to shave it. Maybe it's what we just talked about. It's 4 ounces instead of 6 ounces. Okay. We learned that a lot in the hospitals. What is the patient quantity? What do they actually need? What do they need of what? How can we give them all natural food, give them better flavor, not have processed food like everyone else did in the hospitals, and still get into these crazy low price points of food in hospitals, which just blows my mind still to this day, when you can't get out of the hospital until you start eating. Yet we want to give people garbage to get better, and then say, oh, when you're starting to eat better, you get out. The irony, but we still, as humans, the logic amazes me. So we just the quality of your food, the quality of your ingredients matters to you. Halal, the grass-fed, the organic chicken, why does it matter to you so much? Anchor it for me.
Why does it matter for me? A, obviously religion. B, when you say the word halal, halal literally means permissible or permitted. And what goes beyond the word, just the labeling of halal, it's the whole process of the meat. So, for example, the animal cannot be sick or injured or has any other issues at the time of being slaughtered. The feed has to be natural. You cannot feed unnatural items for rapid growth or size. And then environment in which it has been raised should be natural. You cannot just go against the nature of the animal and still call it halal. That's the technical aspect. Now, that's the pre-slaughtering, and at the time of slaughter, it has to be very, very quick. You cannot leave the animal in pain. The knife that you're using has to be extremely sharp. You have to be done in three strikes. You cannot be like nibbling away on the slaughter process. And then the blood has to come out. All the blood needs to be gushing out, and that lowers any form of bacteria growth or any kind of sickness post slaughter for the meat. And that meat is substantially cleaner than any other store bought meat. And you can taste the difference when you cook it, and it's just so much better. And that is our, as a Muslim, like we can only eat halal, and that is what every item in at BK Jani in all locations and all future locations will always going to be halal.
Yeah, I'm going to totally anchor this for the audience, especially for businesses out there, and then sort of anchor why it sort of doesn't exist in Christianity, why there's these food laws on either side, if you will, but not in. And so I'm going to quick just give everyone something. These are food laws given to humans by God, whether it's Old Testament kosher and the original laws. Go back and look at the original laws in the Old Testament, guys. You'll see that a majority of them are food safety. Why is that important? Well, if we're dying, we're not procreating and we're not building God's kingdom or Allah's kingdom or Yahweh's kingdom, all still God in the same way in a lot of ways. Okay, why is this even more important? Why am I bringing it up? Well, when Christianity went to Rome, Rome had aqueducts and modern agriculture and modern methods. They didn't have to worry about the same food safety in the same way. And to be honest, they didn't care. Plagues ran rapid. It was an accepted part of society versus something to avoid. And building the Roman Empire was more about, I'm going to give you, about conquering other places than procreating and growing the humans. Now, are all of the religions I just talked about, do we war, do we conquer? Of course, that no one's an exception, but that's not my point here. My point here is the health of the humans, the growth of the humans. The whole point of no matter which way we look at it in this triangle of three religions, all of us are assigned the same thing through our laws, through what's been given to us, which is to grow the humans that are after us better than we have it and grow God's kingdom or Allah's kingdom or Yahweh's kingdom greater than it is now. Okay, but where does that start? Well, we have to feed the humans who are in the kingdom, to procreate in the kingdom, to build the kingdom. It starts with the nutrition, the abundance, the ability to do it. So why is halal important? Why am I saying this? Because by the nature of doing things that way, especially in hotter climates, it allowed God's kingdom, or Allah's kingdom in this case, to grow and procreate and live, because there was the foundation of good nutrition, good health, and clean animals. And by clean, what do I mean? I mean void of anything that's from an outside source that shouldn't be there. And I also mean clean in that we've handled the animal properly. We've honored its death as masters over the planet. Okay? utilizing that animal, getting rid of the blood, which is the part that we're talking about. That's the reason we get rid of it, is because it leads to a lot of bacteria, leads to a lot of problems. There is blood sausage out there. That's a whole other topic.
I would like to add one more thing.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
like how you brought it up. The slaughtering process. I have slaughtered animals myself. The slaughtering process is very simple in Islam. The knife has to be really sharp. The animal has to be facing the Qibla. Qibla is the direction in where in Mecca in Saudi Arabia. So you have to put the animal on the floor facing the Qibla, and then you have to hold it down, and you have to recite the prayer. And the prayer is very simple. Like you have to say Bismillah Rahman Rahim in the name, and Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar 3 times. Now, what does it mean? The word Bismillah Rahman Rahim, it says, in the name of God, the most beneficent, most merciful. And while you are processing this thing in the name of God, you are actually you're taking away yourself from the process, because you're not using your own greed or own pride or own ego to kill an animal. You are doing the same process, but you're doing it in the name of God. So you are detaching yourself from the process. It's not you and the animal, it is you through God and the animal. So you're not going to forget God in this one very important action of your life where it creates sustenance, and God has given you this opportunity and the ability and everything else. So it's a very spiritual aspect of your life in which you slaughter an animal for your own benefit, but you do it, you go through God. So that's the whole idea.
Love it. And I agree with you, and it's a way of showing respect and gratitude for what we've been given.
Yeah.
It's so I'm going to say this, guys, and everyone can take it any way they want. God, Allah, Yahweh. For me, this is, and going to seminary and being a theologian and things that theologians don't talk about because we get stuck in our verticals, because that's how we make sense of things. I will tell you, from a theological standpoint and from an entrepreneurial lens, if I'm God and I create a free will planet and we have alignment with him and we're supposed to do his plan and follow his will, there's going to be a lot of avenues that get us to salvation, and whatever salvation is, it's not always going to be the same because we're different and we live free will. Okay, so I just want the same toolboxes that we have to use to build a business that look different for everyone. Just be aware that the same availability of toolboxes are there for us to find salvation theologically. Okay, because the whole point is for us to find peace, to be good to one another, to love one another, to build God's kingdoms, right? Which
Yeah.
is universal, not a tangible here. I just want to anchor that for everyone, because I get a lot of questions about that, but I don't see it that way. Like my first girlfriend ever, she was Jewish. I learned a lot about Jewish. My first wife, only wife, was Muslim.
Mhm.
I go to seminary. I was raised Catholic, went to Catholic school. So I think perspective, guys, is a key thing. But in food and beverage, the more key thing is why these ancient religions, why these ancient societies that are thriving today are thriving still and still growing. What is the basis of it? Well, the basis is food and nutrition, because if you can't have a relationship with fellow humans and you can't have a relationship with God if you don't have health. And that God's giving it to us in the form of food for us to nourish ourselves to have those relationships.
That's
So,
so true. Yeah.
so that's what we're saying here. Talk to me. This will be my last question for you. Talk to me about what it was like growing from one location to 2 to 3, because you had to be scared after everything you went through with the first one. Or was it like, okay, I'm just going to blueprint this out and copy and paste?
So I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and she was talking about being scared of becoming a doctor and how she wants to pursue medical and what if she fails and everything else. And I said, we cannot sit there and continue to anticipate failure. How about you say, I'm going to join medical school at this age, quite late in her life. But what if something else shows up? And I said, I'll give you my own, I like to share my own examples. I never thought I'm going to survive anywhere from the ninth month starting BK Jani in 2016. I thought I'm going to like close it down and do something else and maybe another startup or maybe something else. And then lo and behold, this New York Times thing happens. Then I'm sitting enjoying everything that I'm doing, and a friend of mine calls me up. He goes, "Oh, you must go check out this space out in downtown Brooklyn." And I said, "What is it?" He goes, "I don't know, something that you might like." So I don't tell people like no immediately, because you never know what you're going to find. If you don't like it, walk away. If you find it interesting, do something will show up, and if it's right for you, it will happen. I go there, it comes out to be it's a new food hall being created, and I invite the owners, the directors of the place to come check it out. They loved everything, and they said, "Okay, we can sign the contract, and you can take over this booth." I have no staffing. I have nobody to run that space. I have nobody, like absolutely nothing. And I knew that if it's for me, the person who is going to be running this or is going to help me out will show up. And the next week of me signing the contract, the guy who ran that space for me for 2.5 years and set it up with me showed up, came in through a friend of mine. We sat down on the same table. I was asking him, and he mentioned like, "Oh, he does this. He's does this, and what are my plans?" I was just saying, like, I signed a contract about the space, and I don't know what's next. He goes, "Do you want me to help you?" And I said, "Can you?" He goes, "Yeah." And then he ran the space for 2.5 years. And the third space opened the same way. So there was no blueprint or no business plan or no projections or anything. I just go with I'm given, and I take everything as a test, and I have to take it as gratitude and blessing and abundance. With here's an opportunity, go explore it. I will explore it. I will do whatever it takes. I will give my 100%. If it's for me, if it's for my expansion is meant to be through this channel, it'll happen. And this June, it will be 8 years for that second location to be open. And it's running flawlessly, alhamdulillah. Like there's not even a single time I have to be there to monitor everything. I'm blessed with a really good team. I cannot even tell you my biggest blessing in this whole business is that I have really good people working with me. I can leave anything and everything with them. I have an open kitchen situation. Everybody can eat whatever they want. If somebody who shows up has a little bit of an attitude or something, they will not survive more than 2 weeks and they will leave. So my 95% of my expansion happens with the right people, and when they show up, I know that something else is going to happen. So my manifestation of the future only happens that when I get a good team, things will happen for me.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Sipti. Did I say it right this time?
Yeah, Sibte, yeah.
Sipte. Gosh, I'm going to get it right. By the time I come eat at your restaurant, I'll have it correct.
Yes, absolutely. Welcome. Welcome.
But one of the things, this will be my last question for you. There's been some influence in life, something, core values, mentors, teachers. I don't know what it is, maybe influence, or because of the hardship of trying to make it in a new place. I don't know what it is, but there's something there that has kept you going always, that has kept you pushing through. And so that's going to be my question. But I also want to anchor with something. There's a book by Russell Simmons. I think I have the name right. It's been a while since I've read his books, but this one in particular is about giving away things at the beginning to gain value. Gosh, what is the book called? It's something about the being super rich or something like that. I think that is the name of the book. It's called Super Rich. But it's talking about super rich outside of wealth, and wealth being the trophy, in terms of wealth, I'm talking about monetarily, being the trophy of doing something great, giving it away, and then people finding value in it, and then being able to charge for it. And when you do business that way, then people seek you to grow. You don't have to go seek growth as a business because you're always
Yeah.
constantly growing. By the nature of growing, you're attracting the growth. And that's what you did here. It's a book, guys. Russell Simmons, he is the founder, was the owner of Def Jam Records. I don't know. I think they sold to someone and maybe still own some. I don't know. He's also the cousin of Run Rev from Run DMC. And so, but it's worth reading. It's called Super Rich. I think it came out around 2009 to 2011, somewhere around there. But it talks about this point. It talks about what happened here, giving away the burgers, letting everyone try while it wasn't great. It gave everyone a taste and it allowed everyone to build it. Do I recommend giving away things that you're trying to charge people for? No. But at the beginning of your business, you have to figure out how to drive value. And there is no value when you charge for something that no one finds value in, because value is perceived. Value is perceived in this world. We perceive it. So without giving it away, without doing that, without sacrificing, without God naturally putting this blockade that Sibte, it has to go through.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have won. It would have cost him business probably, and maybe people not buying his food and him feeling like a failure. But what it did is it taught him the lesson of value, and it gave his business value through establishing a really good product and giving it away. And then once people are willing to pay for it, that's when you know it's time to charge for it.
Yeah,
So
that's true. That's a great perspective. I didn't think about that way. And thank you for sharing and thank you for pointing that out. And if you really think about the reason why even slightly successful is the fact that I have a couple of people in my life. They are the real anchors. And one is this chef. She's super close friend of mine. And she's I would say, my base for a lot of things. And if I were to give credit for my growth, it's her. And having her around is like having a security blanket. It's you just need to have the right people around you and people who are progressive, they're positive, and they will grill you for if you do something stupid, but they're always there for you to be real and they will not let you down at any given level. So if you are blessed with friends, hold on to them really tight and don't lose them because they will be the reason for your success if there's any for you.
thank you. I appreciate your time. I did say that was my last question, but this is my real one. Will you explain what Johnny Day is? Because I see it. I've seen people share it, talking
Yeah.
about it, that it's already sold out, parts of it. So I saw it on social media a little bit. I'm starting to see it gain traction. So by the time this comes out, we'll be probably preparing for Johnny Day 26, but we're giving everyone a head start because this looks like a big deal.
So
You
Johnny,
created
the
something
word
here.
Johnny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Johnny, the way I came up with the name BK Jani is a long story. You need to know personally the Pakistani music scene. And anyway, the word John means life. And Johnny is somebody who's more dearer than life. So that's a synonym for honey or sweetheart. And BK Jani is just sounded right, felt right, and that's how I named it. And Johnny Day was February 14th, where you come over and you bring your Johnny of your life over for a steak. That's the Johnny Day.
Love it. I love the concept. I love what it means. I love that you tied it into Valentine's Day and not trying to grab onto the commercial norm. I think that that's important. I think sometimes as restaurants and businesses, we grab on to these St. Patty's Days and things like that because they're easy tickets to money, but we don't actually filter through the core values, the model of our business, the marketing and advertising, the brand of our business. And we kind of just are like, okay, red roses and steak and whatever for everyone, and we don't think about the whole concept. Where here, what we just heard was it's now not quite Valentine's Day. It means more than that. We've given it more,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. That's what we did. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. And I
Yeah,
love
you sold
making,
out for the evening ones, I
yeah.
heard.
Yeah. I was sold out. And then my best challenge, personal challenge is to get every steak perfect sear outside, perfect pink inside, no crazy gradation. It should be equal. And that's what brings the smile on my face when I land on a perfect sear.
And I mean, these are all skills you've learned since 2015, right? This
Yeah.
perfect
On the
sear.
go. On the go. On the go. Everything is on the go.
Yeah.
Like no, yeah, love it.
I said that was my last one. I lied. This talk to me. This will be my last one for real, though. What do you know now that you wish you knew in 2015? I mean, I think all the lessons were necessary, but what are some of the things that you have now, the knowledge you have now, in the success you have now, with the locations you have now, that you wish you maybe would have known or known about yourself or had confidence in yourself in?
I disagree with anything that would be an answer of this question because I think where I'm right now, if I knew everything that I know now back in 2015, I would have steered it more in a different direction. And that would have been less fun, more business. And sometimes I, I do get asked, like, why don't you charge your friends? My friends come over, there's a big table, 13 people. And I said, there's no such thing as charging your friends. Either they're friends or they're customers. So if I knew food costs, if I knew expenses and everything else, maybe that would have tainted somehow, somewhere, something. I would have not had fun as much as I do now because if there's a lamb shank on sale or there's a mention of a lamb shank, I'll just get a case and I'll just play with it. And I love the freedom that I still enjoy over here. I don't want ever to be boxed into a business plan or a projection or meeting the goals. I just want my staff to be happy. I want everything to be. I know I'm going to be rambling on for a long time answering this question, but I think where I am right now is because I didn't know anything, and I love that part.
I agree with this, what you just said, 100%. There are customers and clients and transactions. Maybe there are friends that turn into customers, clients, transactions, but then it does turn into that. And especially if you're in maybe co-packing, things like that, where you have a
Yeah,
friend that has something, they come to you. But here's the thing I'm going to emphasize, guys. The not charging friends or giving that stuff away, one, it's not necessarily a loyalty thing or buying loyalty, but I will say this. I will say it's very important to have an honest relationships in our food and beverage entrepreneurial journeys. And some people may look at it, oh, they're getting a free meal. Yep, that's true. And the ones who get tired of having a free meal that go on to the next best thing or the next free meal, and it's more about the free meal than the friendship, they just leave. It takes
mm,
care of itself.
yeah, I
Okay.
agree. I agree.
And so why is this important? You in the world of entrepreneurship where we live business 24/7, we have to be very careful in our personal relationships and our friendships not to cross that line. Does that mean our brother or sister or mother or father aren't our business partners? No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is in the boundaries of relationships. Even if I'm in a business with my father, I'm not in business with my mother, even though it may be a family business. We just have to look at that dynamic. And so what are we saying here? The minute it becomes a financial transaction in people that are our friends and that we need in our friends, we as the entrepreneur, whether we like it or not, change a little bit. So
Yeah.
that's the whole thing. We go back to the beginning. If we're paying for something, we have a higher level of expectation. The friendship then has a higher level of expectation. it goes to a whole new level. I talked about it in Gorilla Brave. If you're paying for the elite level, you have a higher expectation. You're wanting people that are on your level. All the rest of the levels are voluntary, free, whatever you put in, what you get out. That's how it works. So
Mm.
it's the same idea here. And I just wanted to emphasize that for everyone. I think that we're good. And I think what you did is you designed a menu that I think everyone also is you made things affordable. You also made things high value, and you also were willing to give it away because you believed in it so much.
Absolutely. 100%.
So,
100%.
yeah. You didn't know what it is. You believed in yourself. You believed in what you were doing, and it kept you going. So I think that that's for the audience. One more time, where can they find you online, and where can they find your locations?
It's bkjani.com. And on Instagram, it's at BK Jani, BK Bravo Kilo Juliet Alpha November India.
Perfect. Is there anything you want to say before we leave, or anything I didn't say that maybe you want to cover?
Yes, if there's anybody who's interested in learning, seriously interested in learning how to know anything, do not hesitate to contact. You can send me a DM, especially giving your reference. I'll be more than happy to share and help them out if they need anything. And I just want everybody to know that if they have an idea, execute it. Don't be afraid to fail, because if you're afraid to fail, then you will not get to the next level, which is usually success.
Yeah, I'm going to try to do it. Sibte Hassan, everyone. Really amazing entrepreneur, guys. And the name, me messing up, the name is worth knowing. It is worth getting right. That's why I'm spending so much time on it, because I do believe in what he's doing. I do believe that his product in the industries that he is in, chicken, beef, the burgers, but he's also adding his own twist to it, the lamb. He's got some stars on the show. He's removed cheese. These things matter. It's not a going head to head. It's the David and Goliath. David didn't win because he put on a shield and he grabbed a big sword and he fought Goliath. He won because he was an infantry ballistics person and he was slinging stones, a shepherd by nature. But at that time, because Israel was so small, every person had to serve in the army or the military.
Mm,
So his training was to sling stones. That's why we saw
mm,
the shepherd become king. Okay, it's
nice.
also why his overnight success led to him committing adultery and the sin pattern. But we can see what power does. So I'm going to anchor both things for everyone. Yes, our fight is to go fight the Goliaths, not head on, but within them, and using our skills and our maneuverability and our entrepreneurship. That's how we do it. And we focus on ourselves and our own skills and not worrying about what they're doing. He didn't focus on Goliath's armor or his size or his weapon. Okay. But on the other hand, the lesson also teaches us that if we don't stop and learn the lessons that we just talked about, to build our menus, to build our restaurants, to learn what we don't know, not pay the money to take the shortcuts, to do it, to be willing to give it away, to believe in enough in it that people will eventually want to pay for it. That's the
100,
powerful thing. We always want to be anchored in where we came from and how hard it was. And without those hardships, if it's too instant, like I just talked about David from Old Testament, if it's a Bible, you can see that the rise to power can, even if God is involved, can still lead to human sin or causing problems in his kingdom or in our businesses. So that's why I love what we talked about today. Thank you guys. I love you guys. We're out. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you very much.